Hi Owen, hi Johnny.
How are you?
We've just been speaking there about the Stockdale hour on Saturday evening. Johnny just referred to it there as a character building exercise from a Stockdale perspective. I guess that's exactly what it is in the long term, isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't see the game live, so I watched the game just yesterday, and it was an exceptional piece of play, but obviously didn't get the ultimate reward, I think, because people were talking about it was similar to Freddie Byrne's. For me, it had nothing to do with the Freddie Byrne's incident. I thought it was completely different, and I think he was playing an instinct in the fact that I think he had beaten so many defenders, and probably one of his traits is that he scores like that. Obviously, a left winger going in with his left hand and putting the ball down, and it just fell out of his hand. I think other people can say he can dive, but he's gone at such pace there, and I'd say he's just so relieved to beat so many defenders and look upon a brilliant piece of play, and then all of a sudden he loses control for a little fraction of a second and pays a really heavy price, because it's an unfortunate thing to happen to any young player.
It's interesting that you say he was playing on instinct there, that a skill like that, to a player of his quality, should obviously be based on instinct. He shouldn't have to think about the technical aspect of it too much. And I don't want to read into it too much either, but is there a sense now that he has to kind of work a little bit more on how he thinks about the technical aspects in terms of carrying things out in the middle of a game, which seem to the rest of us very, very basic?
Yeah, I suppose it happened so quickly. I think people forget that, and we're all experts sitting on the couch looking at him, kind of going, why didn't he die? But you look among the people he beat in such a short space of time as well, and then he composed himself to keep it, I suppose, at that 33 kilometres an hour, and being putting the ball down, and he nearly got it down. It was
close.
Yeah,
incredible plea. Yeah, it wasn't like it was, what's that turkey doing? It fell out of his hands. There's nothing like that. It was very few people in the world would have got into that position in the first place. And I was kind of asking myself, what do you do in that position? And an immediate answer didn't jump to mind, because if he jumps or dives at that speed, the fact that can he injure himself? Can he bring the dead ball line into play? So in that regard, it was really, really, I think, difficult to know exactly what to do.
Was there an element as well? I was thinking this at the time, and remember watching rugby when I was younger. Was there an element, Ronan, that back in the days before video analysis, that's a try probably? Yeah. 9 times out of 10, that's a try.
Yeah, I would say so. We're going to just fix Ronan's Skype there and get back to him in just a moment.
The two lads I was watching it with, I said to them, I'm not sure he's grounded that, and they didn't see it at the time. And then they're like, I think you might be right here. No, I wasn't sure, but I was like, I'm just not 100% sure he grounded that. But then the more you watch, it's like, oh no, they're in big trouble here. But I think with Stockdale as well, there was so much, he was playing so well, the crowd were roaring him on, he was full of confidence going over the line, and he felt at that moment, I will ground this. It was almost like maybe a little bit of overconfidence just in the heat of the moment, where he thought, I'm going to get this down. But you're talking inches, and you needed a microscopic analysis to find out that he didn't. It was so close, and it was just one of them moments for him. I totally forgive him. I think his adrenaline maybe got the better of him in that moment.
Yeah, it is an occupational hazard of being a professional sports person, that there will be moments, Ronan, where you just want the ground to open up and swallow you whole. And I'd imagine, being a former out half, that moment happens more often than others. How do you deal with that sense of responsibility?
Yeah, I know that feeling well, and it is a horrible feeling. But I suppose the other side of it too is that in the position that he plays in, he's equivalent to Van Nistelrooy or Thierry Henry. His strike rate is that good in terms of a try score. So that is his bread and butter, scoring tries, and that's what he gets paid for, and that's what he gets picked on the teams for, and that's what he's going to hopefully do for the World Cup for the country. So he's going to probably have to get a routine, same as what happened potentially myself in Twickenham 2000, when you're, in hindsight, you learn a brutal lesson, but you'd wish that it didn't have such a heavy consequence. 9-8 beaten in a final, scored 0 points, kicked 0 out of 4 in a high-pressured game, which ultimately deprived great teammates of a Heineken Cup medal. And, I think, you can go one or two ways. As a kicker, it's probably a little bit different, but I think for me on it was, I got great advice from Keith Wood. It was kind of pressure would strike again, but it might only hit you once a season. And you can brush it under the carpet, or you can take the lessons out of it. And basically, you got to have a technique that's bulletproof that you can call on, because you can get away with it in the pool stages, get away with it maybe quarter-final, and ultimately Jacob didn't get away with it in this game, but it didn't. I don't think it cost Ulster the game. There would have been a response from Leinster. Let's not make any mistake in that front. 37 games, it's midway through a competitive game where Leinster were tested, but really were they that tested? Right. I don't know. I think they finished out the game comfortably. Go on, sorry.
Sorry, we might come back to that in just a moment. I just wanted to pick you up on Twickenham in 2000 again, because it actually, I thought it'd strike me there that the learnings that Jacob Stockdale will take from this is kind of based on the magnitude of the error. Like, you say it had huge consequence what happened in Twickenham in 2000. Like, would you have learnt as much if it was a game of less consequence, for example?
Well, I think we'll find that out. I think, and there's a saying which sports people use, I think that, great teams lose once, but the great teams don't lose twice in a row. So if he was to go out and do it in his next big game, you'd have to ask question marks about his temperament and the fact that has he really learned? And I agree with Johnny in the fact that I think it was. I don't think there was any. I know for a fact there wasn't any showboating or any. I think he did 99 and 100 things right, and I think he lost it at the final placement, which at that speed, I forgive him. I think it can happen to anyone. I think genuinely, I would say move on.
When we speak about moments of great responsibility and stepping up to the plate and the potential consequence of big events, I mean, you can look at Ross Byrne's performance in that kick while cramping up on Saturday night as well. When you're looking at that, when you're looking at his decision to go for the post in that moment, are you saying absolutely bang on there, correct call? Would you have done that?
Yeah, it was great, and I think that's a great trait in any young player, especially a young 10 who's probably filling in for another great player, and that has its own pressures. But I think the fact that is it in between the 70th and 80 minutes, money time in a knockout cup final, and a capacity for your 10 to do that speaks volumes for his temperament, and he nailed it. It was the middle of the middle, and what a great kick and a great lift to his forwards. And the learnings for Ross in that situation would be, why am I cramping? So there's another lesson for him to take out of it in terms of it's a quarter-final. Obviously, he had a lot of nervous energy going into it, but a fit young fella like that, I think, there's probably some areas of learnings he can get out of that as well, in the fact that he needs to be able to manage that ship for 80 minutes, because it could have gone pear-shaped without him on the pitch, because you need to, in that situation, Noel Reid and all the other backs were being used, so it's a key man to lose with 8 minutes to go.
Yeah, like it's interesting wondering what the mindset is of a young player like that in that situation, because like reading John Cooney's quotes in the Irish Times on Saturday morning, he was saying that the way he's become a better kicker is actually thinking of all the people who've been in that position before him and have failed, that if he fails with this particular kick, there will be another person after him and there'll be another person after that. That I wonder if that puts it into a little bit more context and takes the pressure off in a moment like that.
Yeah, well, kickers are mad. Every single one, it's such a fascinating subject. The fact some days it's so easy and you're doing the exact same thing the next day and you're going, why am I missing? But that's the beauty of it. I think the fact that you do your prep, you do your mental work, and you do your routine, and you get better at it by putting yourself in more difficult scenarios that hopefully when the pressure comes on, you can count on it, and the buzz you get out of that, kicking in front of 80,000 people with 7 seconds left on the clock or whatever, that stimulates you for 3 years. And you won't get that, but then the kind of madness in you as you get older, you need that kind of adrenaline rush and you need that buzz. And that's what a lot of these kickers in Ireland now are on the road to. I think there's a new breed of them coming through, and they're stepping up nicely. And the mind is so powerful that it plays tricks in you, and you have to find something that works for you. And what works for me won't work for Wilkinson, won't work for Carter, won't work for Stephen Jones. So it's a very personalised subject where you can give an opinion, but is it really the truth? Because you can tell lies to a lot of people, but you can't cheat yourself in kicking.
What is it that you told yourself in those situations?
Is it repeatable? What Ronan O'Gara said to Ronan O'Gara.
That was an interesting chat. Yeah, but I think it's that people ask what experience is, and I got a great, I think, lesson in 2001 in the Lions tour. Neil Jenkins could barely walk. Actually, I'd say he was on a lot of injections a day to keep him kind of out of a wheelchair because his knees were gone, swollen. And I remember Graham Henry going to me, if there's a penalty kick with 3 minutes to go or 8 minutes to go or 10 minutes to go, I'm back in Jenks to kick this, and how right he was. But at the time you're like, oh geez, no, he can barely walk, he can't move. But that's what big games are won by. You know, I think it's such an interesting topic in the fact that, you know, you're playing as a team sport, and then all of a sudden it's like you're on the 18th tee in Augusta and you got to hit the fairway, and then your next one has to go on the green. That's your kind of mindset. You kind of know that this comes down to me now. And at a while, for years, I hated it, but I loved the responsibility of it, and the thought of giving the tee to someone else would break you. But after a while, you just kind of going, oh yes, this is so good.
Would you have faith in Ross Byrne now as the heir apparent at Leinster, looking at how he's developed as a player and in terms of coming through that test on Saturday?
Yeah, I think the great thing about him is that he's got better, and he's still getting better, and I think there's more growth in him. And I think he's lucky in the fact that his natural style is kind of a game manager and a game controller and a structured player, and then having the capacity to work with Contepomi every day would be of huge benefit to him, because they're very different stylists and very different minds, I would think. And I think if you could mix the two of them, it would be really interesting. So he's in really good hands there, and I think you can look at he nearly has a point of difference already in the fact that you can really count on him for nailing his kicks at goal, and you can really count on him for nailing a cross kick, which inevitably he's a points gatherer, which is a very underrated attribute in a lot of tens. So I think he scored 16 points at the weekend, which is really helpful for the team. No matter what else he does in the game, if it does what it says on the tin and he knocks it over, I think it's a big plus for his teammates and for his staff.
Ronan, I'm keen to get your take on Munster's performance on Saturday in Murrayfield. Like, the general sense coming away from that game, I'd say, from Edinburgh's perspective, was that they deserved to win the game, and that Munster, it was kind of a smash and grab from their perspective. But I do wonder if it just kind of showed that this is a pure and utter trust that the Munster have in Johan van Graan's game plan. And sure, they got a bit of luck, but they stuck with the plan and they saw the whole thing out, and when they got their opportunity, they struck.
Yeah, and I must admit, Owen, I was so annoyed. The alarm was set for 2:15. I was up and I couldn't get it, so I had to bloody watch it yesterday. And watching a game knowing the result is
terrible.
Yeah, exactly. You know, your mind is made up on a lot of things already. You know, so to give an honest appraisal of it, watching it live, obviously I don't have those inner sentiments about the game. So I think. You know, watching it back, if Edinburgh had won the game, Munster couldn't have any complaints. But the beauty of Munster is that it's their 14th semi-final, and there's a reason. There is a reason for that, and the reason is character. The boys play for each other. They've always played for each other, and it's such a great attribute. Do they have to improve their game before Saracens? Yes, everyone knows that. But Cup rugby is very different to any other rugby in the fact of Pro 14 season, and no relation to what goes on. And I think Munster found a way to win. Earlsey found a way to win, being very specific about it. And I think you have a guy there that's, at 31, he's playing the best rugby of his life.
You said it'll have to improve for Saracens. Of course they will. But the intriguing thing going into this in a cup perspective is that it's the best attack in Europe at the moment versus one of the best defences in Europe at the moment. Like, which side would you rather be on going into a cup semi-final? The best defence or the best attack?
Well, defence wins the championship, but also what we know is that you have to score tries. Munster aren't scoring enough tries probably at the minute. You look at Earlsey getting obviously 2 the last day. But they just need to, and I think genuinely that they're kind of in bonus territory now, and that's not damning of them, because anyone who's an ex-player of them, and we've hopefully set the bar pretty high there, where winning silverware is what it's all about. But I think Munster are a common team, or a common force. I think their performance in Thomond Park at Christmas time against Leinster will give them confidence, and I think they realise that there's a big game or two in them, and they're 160 minutes away from lifting it, and I think that will change their mentality. The pressure will be more on Saracens than it will on Munster, and the big winner of the weekend was Tyler Blyandall, who came in cold from 35 minutes and showed his class, and probably people were probably scratching their head about why is he being kept on, retained, or why is he injured for 2 years, but he essentially got Munster to a semi-final the last year with a big performance.
How beneficial is it from Van Grant's perspective to have 2 out-halves that are not only of great quality but differ in how they play quite significantly as well, that there is almost a plan B that comes with replacing your out-half?
Yeah, that's the benefit of it, I suppose, but I suppose Carberry's a bit of a freak in the way he plays 10. I think he has the speed and agility and footwear of an outside back, while a lot of the old school 10s were more platters like myself. I'm not saying Tyler's like that, but he's well able to manage a game, and I think to kick that conversion speaks volumes for him, because I think it opens all kinds of possibilities in the ref's mind, especially a French ref, when you're 2 points up away from home. But when you're 4 points up, the rules change, and you kind of you can cheat to the point where a half a metre off the offside line doesn't really matter. If he pings you, they can't kick at goal. They'll be kicking to the corner. So I think they have and Butcher, and they have JJ Hanrahan as well, who is obviously frustrated that he's not getting as much game time as he'd like. So the good thing about them, they've competition for places, which means that the games between now and Saracens are important to guys, because you can see that. I would say it's a long shot that Joey Carberry will be starting now the next day.
Is there anything you see in this Munster team that reminds you at all of your great team? Like 2008, obviously you can make the obvious symmetry with the fact that it was a Saracen semi-final, and who knows, it was Toulouse in that final as well. But I think going into that semi-final against Saracens in 2008, Munster had the least tries.
Are you a secret Munster or a secret Leinster fan, Owen? Are you?
We'll say nothing on that particular comment. I think going into that 08 semi-final,
Munster men from around Castle Island and those areas, Kerry's a proud tradition.
Well, absolutely there is. I'm sure that was all sarcasm from Ronan there.
Yes, I hope so.
The 2008 semi-final, just like going into that game, Munster had the best defensive record, I think, in the competition, least tries conceded of everybody less than the last 4. Like, I do wonder if that was a part of your mentality that helped you win those tight games, win the games by small margins, knowing that if you had a kick to win the game, chances are it will be to win the game because you weren't going to concede too many more points.
Yeah, and I think it's so different, the mindset of kind of coaches, pundits, supporters. When we were in that dressing room, I'm sure the coaches were saying it to us, but we weren't even aware of what we had defensively or what we have offensively. We kind of knew what we wanted to do in a cup game. But like in terms of like lads were the best defensive record, I don't think we were shouting that to ourselves in terms of this will really stand to us. It was kind of, well, someone would have been slagged anyway if Marcus came up with it or Quinny decided to say it. There would have been someone that would just say it would have been made a joke of, you know. So I think there aren't any similarities on, because the game has so moved on in that 11 years.
Sure.
I think it would be a mistake of me to make any comparison. It's a completely new team. Obviously, I think Earlsey is the link there with the older team. But from that regard, no, it's a completely different game and a different era with different, nearly rules and how the game is played.
There's one last thing I just wanted to ask you about, Ronan, because there was an interesting piece in the Irish Examiner written by Simon Lewis last week. He was speaking with Jerry Flannery, and he was talking about his time spent down in New Zealand last year with the Crusaders and what he learnt and how he managed to apply it to Munster. And he's talking about the idea that you're always looking for answers in rugby, and you're always thinking what that crowd is doing, we should be doing, and we should be applying it to what we do because Crusaders are a brilliant outfit and all of that sort of thing. But he actually came to the realisation that what's right for Munster is what is right for Munster, that you guys might be doing something absolutely fantastic down in New Zealand, but ultimately it might not actually fit the style that Munster want to play or the identity of Munster rugby. What's your thoughts on that? I'm not sure how much you communicate with Jerry, but in terms of his rugby mindset, in terms of how he's managing to apply what he learnt down there to Munster over the past few months.
Yeah, Jerry's a fascinating guy, a great guy with a hugely interesting brain, mind, philosophy on the game, and hugely driven. And yeah, I think he did come down. I think he probably got his world turned upside down, but also the fact that maybe I think it reinforced a lot of the good things that are in Munster. And I think that wasn't necessarily me telling him that. I think it was other coaches and other members of the staff down in the Crusaders. In fact, that I think it was kind of because the Crusaders, I think, suffered from it for a period of time, kind of looking over the fence to see what your neighbour has. So all the players that were playing in the All Black camp were coming back to Crusaders with ideas what was happening in the All Black camp. And then it took them a number of years, a large number of years, to actually say, we do things differently here and this is how we do it. And I think all of us suffer from it at certain stages, when you look over the hedge and your man next door is driving a Beamer and you're driving a Lada, and you're kind of going, well, what's the story with that? But I think the point that the staff were making to Jerry was back like that everyone's identity is different and the strengths are different, and you'd have to concentrate on that and build your game on your kind of, I suppose, your key components or your rocks of your environment. And I think, you know, I mean, Munster's DNA is well established at this stage about how they play the game, and there's no point changing their game to appease people who said they should be playing a wider game. To stick to what they're good at and get better at that, and then try and, I suppose, add on to the areas where they're not so strong. And yeah, I must look that article up. I didn't see that. So you know, I think we all learn from each other in this game, and you know, Jerry is incredibly passionate about it. And I think maybe another thing, probably the myth is that more is more. Sometimes I think for the days, or what he saw down here would be, in fact, sometimes less is more, and it's how you do it, in terms of, you don't have to be doing 14 hours of analysis today and going into your meeting tired because you've done all your video work and you're annoyed at some of the players. Players are players. They don't have to do video work if they don't want to, but they have to perform well at the weekend, and every single one of them are different. So I think that's what makes the whole coaching ticket so exciting.
Yeah, for sure. Like I made that point that ultimately it's not a one-size-fits-all approach, but at the same time he says in the same article that Rob Penny, when he eventually came over to Munster, tried to transplant the Crusaders culture into the side, and there's still some of those things that are going on here. So you'd wonder if the two rugby cultures are that different at all.
I completely agree with you. They are very, very similar in some regard, I think, and they have great values in both clubs, and they're probably the two clubs I can speak pretty accurately about, having spent time in both. So yeah, I think, but it's only when you get out you can kind of give an accurate comment on that, and that was the great thing for Jerry. I think the fact that he's in Munster all his life and so passionate about it, but I think just to get out and to see how another club is doing it can either augment or diminish your approach to something. And I think he got good value out of it, which is what it's all about. We all need to grow.
Before you go, are you still involved in any horses, or are you waiting to come back to the Northern Hemisphere to get back involved?
No, he's lame. Paul Shanahan isn't looking after me. He's meant to be looking after me with one down in Joseph's, but
he's lame.
As you know, he's what would you say? He has an all a groin injury.
Right.
Groin injury. So Johnny, have a word with Paul Shanahan for me there and see what he's up to. But I've not texting Joseph, but he said no, we'll need another few weeks, and then another few months go by. No, Raj, another few weeks.
He's playing you up for like a kipper.
all is in hand. So easy come, easy go. That's the name of the horse.
There we are.
We'll keep an eye out for it. When can we expect to see it make the track, or wherever it's going to take?
Could be 2 months or 3 years the way he's talking there.
Yeah, Jesus. Well.
Yeah, exactly.
Was he named after you?
Easy come, easy go. We'll make sure to keep an ear out for it. Ronan, good stuff. We'll chat to you again.
You won that one, lads. Good luck.